Two, one, and go. Hey guys, this is Bruce. Welcome to Convocourses podcast. Once a week, we talk about governance, risk, and compliance, the other side of cybersecurity that you may not have heard of. And today, I'm going to focus on just helping people to get into this field. I'm just going to talk about what it's like to be in this field, just openly talk about it in a very real way. Like whatever you want to know, I'm gonna be just straightforward and real with you about this career path that I've decided to take. I've been on this path for quite some time, doing governance, risk, and compliance, and it's been very rewarding. And I think I should probably start off by explaining what is it that I do and what is governance, risk, and compliance. So a lot of times people talk about cyber, just hacking or knowing code or setting up firewall rules or updating the latest security patch on an operating system or something like that. And that is one legitimate aspect of cybersecurity that all of us need to have in our organizations, whether it's a bank or healthcare or whatever industry you're in, whatever organization has to have all those aspects of cybersecurity. But there's one part that is rarely talked about, and that's the governance, the risk, and the compliance. And so it's a very broad field, but mostly what you're doing is helping the organization to maintain their security posture. And in layman's terms, that just means there's an organization, they have to have a certain level of security on their systems, whether that's patches being applied or making sure that people's private information is not shared out, that it's protected, that it's encrypted. Making sure all that stuff is in place is another aspect of the cybersecurity. Making sure that all that stuff is the organization says it's there, and now we're going to double check to make sure it's there, and we're going to document it to make sure if somebody leaves the organization, somebody else can come in and say, okay, where were they at? What can I do to take over? So that's also a part of cybersecurity. And this is a part of cybersecurity that pays really well. And it's extremely broad. Like I said, it's not just documentation. It's monitoring what is going in and out of the systems. It's making sure that it's in line with certain laws. Whatever industry you happen to be in, whatever country you're in, there's certain laws that have to be held up. And so that's what I do. I've been doing some aspect of some of that. Sometimes it's more of a management type role. Sometimes I'm more of like just doing a lot of documentation and doing a bunch of meetings. Sometimes I'm actually on the system, applying patches, making sure things are good, doing scans, making sure the risk isn't too high, checking for vulnerabilities. Sometimes I've been doing all the full range of GRC stuff. And I want to tell you guys that about this work. I'm going to be taking questions. I'm just going to keep this one loose. I don't really have an agenda or anything. I'm just talking to you guys. So any questions you have, any comments you have, everything is helpful. I'll pass it along. A lot of times this is a community, so a lot of times people way more knowledgeable than me jump on and give advice, and those people have been working in this field longer than me, or they're in some aspect of it that I haven't done before. So I will always welcome those people to chime in and continue this conversation, expand this conversation. So I've already got something from Instagram. Somebody said, "How about CYSA?" So CYSA Plus that's a certification, a cybersecurity certification that I personally don't have, but I know about it. It's CompTIA. CompTIA has what's called they actually have a bunch of certifications, but one of them is called the CYSA Plus. And the CYSA Plus is for analysts. It's the CompTIA Cybersecurity Analyst, and it's mostly for people who's going to be a SOC analyst, like a Security Operations Center analyst. And these are people who they monitor the logs and the traffic in and out of a network. To give you a specific example, let's imagine a network, imagine a company, and they have like 100 computers, right? and they have to monitor all the data that's going in and going out of the network, because they want to monitor what's going out of the network. Because what if somebody tries to post IPs out on the internet, right? IP stuff that's secret or sensitive inside the company, like secret. Maybe they have proprietary information, or maybe it's the next Marvel movie or whatever. Some proprietary information that they don't want leaked out because it's going to hurt it's going to hurt money, it's going to hurt their reputation or whatever. And somebody is leaking that information out, so they have to monitor what's going out of the organization. That's called data loss prevention. But it's also like people who are like a threat who are on the inside. Like sometimes you have people who, for whatever reason, they're inside the organization and they are disgruntled. They're just angry, and they're leaking stuff on the internet that shouldn't be out there, or they're leaking stuff to the competitor that shouldn't be out there. So you got to monitor what's going from inside the network outside, but you also have to, of course, monitor what's trying to come in, because especially if your internet, if your company um, has a presence on the internet, where they have a website, they have a portal for users and other clients to come in and sign up or whatever, you've got to protect those resources that are on the external part of your network. So that's where the CYSA people come in, because they're monitoring everything that's going out and coming in and all the threats to that organization. And so that's what that particular certification helps you with. And I think it's a good certification because, as usual, CompTIA does a really good job of advertising it. A really important part of the whole certification world is making sure that you, first of all, have credibility in the space, and also advertising it, putting it out there, doing teaching sessions, going to the government and teaching directly to the government, telling them about your new certification program, inviting people in and getting them certified, and having it have a good curriculum to where the results are really good, so that when people do have this certification, they go out to the workforce and they're doing good work. And so that's how they build up their credibility. CompTIA is pretty good at this. So the analysts plus people actually know about this. The technical recruiters know about this certification. It's a pretty popular certification. That said, that alone is not going to get you a job. You want to have some kind of experience in the tools, the practices, the methods, and experience in actually doing the work. So the tools, some of the tools that analysts use are SIEMs, which is a security information event manager. So that's the stuff that it's a system that is looking at all the logs going in and out of the network. Other tools would be knowing logs. Actually, is a real good one. That's one skill set that you'll need to know what logs look like, what it looks like when the logs are on a Windows system versus a Mac system versus a Linux system. What do the actual logs look like? How do you turn them on and off? And what are you looking at when they're coming through? So one thing you can do is actually look at logs on your own computer, or on servers, if you happen to be in an environment where you can look at server or any kind of other logs, because you have other logs, not just computer and server logs. You have internet working devices that have logs on them. Like that's your switches and your routers have logs. So tools would be tools that actually look at the logs, the SIEM devices. Other tools would be an implement IDS and IPS, intrusion detection or intrusion prevention systems, scanners, any kind of tools that you have like that. Experience with those tools is really good. Methodologies would be like what incident handling. What do you do when you get an incident? Knowing what to do. There's several different methods to manage an incident responses. But if you have experience with that, man, that's really golden. So those are like the main things: the skill sets, the tools, the methods. If you have some kind of experience with some of those things, because you might have been on the help desk, but you still had experience with scanners, or you still had experience with firewalls or logs or stuff like that. And those are the things that are really useful to you. That said, that is a great certification, and it's very marketable. So I know a few people that have it, and they're in great positions. So let me see here. Let me see if I got any more questions. Again, today I'm just going to take you guys' questions. That's it. Just talking about mostly GRC type stuff. If you have any questions whatsoever, I've been doing this for quite some time. I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. So if you have any questions, you happen to watch me right now. Great opportunity to ask me questions while I have time. Okay, let me see. I got a question here from YouTube. Somebody said, for someone in a management role, um, over grants in local government, which certifications or skills would be beneficial to get to transition into management, into a management role in GRC? So okay, where are you? You're starting from a management role over grants in local government. Which certification or skills? Okay, so you might have exposure already to a certain laws, standards, and frameworks. You might have exposure and you don't know you don't know that you have the exposure. And so that kind of stuff you want to put on your resume. You think nothing of it, but some of that stuff's really valuable, but it's not. A lot of times this is what happened. I'm not saying you know, I've never seen your resume, so I wouldn't know. But a lot of times the resumes I've seen are people like yourself who are in these different industries, especially in alignment with government, local, federal government, state government, whatever, any kind of industry. A lot of times they don't know what they don't know what they have, and you might be in this boat. So what you want to look at is certain laws and regulations that govern what you do, because a lot of times they'll have security built into the laws. Like there's certain things that have to be done in those agreements with companies that work with the government. They have to do to secure information. I'll give you a couple examples. Um, so working with contractors, a lot of contracting organizations, especially the medium-sized companies, medium to large-sized companies, they have to be familiar with, I think it's called DFAS. It's like Defense Federal Acquisitions, something or other. And that is one of the things you would want to put on your resume. Let me see if I could bring that one up real quick. DFAS. And this is just one example. No, Defense Finance Accounting Services. My bad. um, but that one right there, that Defense Finance Accounting Services, that if you have exposure to that, that would be something that you would want to put on your resume, that you're familiar with it. Because the thing is, as a compliance person, I have to make sure that an organization is in a line. Or first of all, sometimes I have to make sure I've got to tell the company or whatever organization I'm working for, I've got to point out to them what things they should be in alignment with, because sometimes they don't know. It's different when I'm working with the federal government, because they're very much in the know what they're supposed to be doing. So usually they're telling me, here's what we're supposed to be doing, do this, do that, whatever. But sometimes I'm working with organizations that they don't even know what they're supposed to be doing. Like they have some idea that they're supposed to be doing DFAS, because that's how you do federal. You have to do a certain kind of accounting with this, with the federal government. But sometimes there'll be little caveats in that law, in the laws or in the frameworks or in the standards that they don't know. So what you can do is look into whatever you're working with now. Look into whatever's governing you. I don't know if it's DFAS or not, but I know. Let me see if there's anything with grant. There might be something. Let me see. Federal. You said local grants. Laws for grants government. And there might be one for your local government, like if you're in the state of Michigan or whatever, they might have certain grant policies and stuff that they have to do. I'm on grants.gov. It's for federal grants. HSS has grants. There's certain things, regulations, and policies that they have to do. So what I would do is I would kind of reverse engineer what you're already doing, right? So look at the laws, the standards, and frameworks that govern what you currently do, and get familiar with those, right? And if you're already familiar with it, think about what it says about how to protect client and official information, like sensitive information. How is proprietary information protected? How is financial records and financial information protected? How is privacy protected? Look at the laws that govern that. It could be local laws all the way up to federal laws, and put that stuff in your resume, and think about any time that you've had to protect client side information, client account information, because that's the kind of stuff. What I'm getting at here, it might be trying, like, sounds confusing, but what I'm trying to get you to do is think about whenever you've had to deal with standards or laws and how you dealt with them, because that's basically what I do. That's basically what I do. Um, what I'm doing right now is a lot of meetings. I'm like a security secretary, to be honest with you. I'm just doing a bunch of documentation. Um, so you already know some laws. You already know. Now, what you got to do is figure out what those laws are and get very, very comfortable with them. Like, be able to name them and be able to put them on your resume. The next thing you want to do is align yourself with basic information technology, the fundamentals of information technology. And why that's important is because the more you know about the fundamentals of information technology, how networks work, how computers work, what is cloud technology, how's all this stuff working together. Terminology is super important. Once you know the basics, the foundational information, then you want to think about how to protect those the information technology. And that's information. That's right there, cybersecurity. That right there in a nutshell is cybersecurity. How do we protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information, sensitive information? And that's not just for the federal government. It's for local government. It's for companies. It's for different industries. It's for everyone. And that's what I would do. Step one, look at what industry you're already in and be mindful of all of the standards, practices, and policies, laws that you already are familiar with. I don't know if it's DFAS, but I was giving you that as an example. But DFAS, acquisitions, protection of privacy, protection of client account information, all that stuff. Whatever that is, you need to put that in your resume. The next thing is learn basic information technology. Once you learn the basic information technology, and one resource that you can do is CompTIA A plus. Another one would be I think Google has one. Google IT support. I think they have one. It's not as popular as I would highly recommend CompTIA A plus because it actually has some notoriety. This is basically to learn basic information tech. I'm saying basically too many times. Basically. Anyway, so this is to learn the fundamentals of information technology so you can have a real good solid foundation to build up your knowledge of security and how do I secure this stuff. And then you can marry all that stuff together and build on what you've already been doing in your field. And this goes for anybody. If you happen to be in defense contracting, if you happen to be in healthcare, if you happen to be a teacher, if you happen to be in retail, every single industry in every single country and every single province on this earth has some type of security that they have to be mindful of. And if they're not, it's just a matter of time before things go very bad. So be mindful of whatever industry you happen to be in. If it's retail, PCI DSS. If it's healthcare in the US, it's HIPAA, HIT Trust. These are things that if you happen to be in these fields, you can actually crack a book open and go on the internet and start learning it right now. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Every industry has GRC in it. Pharmaceuticals have it. I think they call it GXP. They have one for financial sector, have one for manufacturing, typically uses NIST CSF. You've got an international standard, ISO 27001. Different countries have their own. Australia has their own. Canada has their own. Different countries in Kenya has their own. Nigeria has their own. Every country, I can't say every single local city has one, but some cities have one. So especially the larger cities like New York City, the state of California has their own privacy laws. You can get knowledgeable of this, whatever industry you happen to be in, learn the laws, and the laws will point to protection of privacy, protection of sensitive information. Learn that stuff, put it on your resume. You've already probably been doing it. You got to put it on your resume though. I hope that helps. I mean, I have to know a little bit more about what you do to give you more specific information. But I hope that helps. All right, I got some other questions here, and I'm just keeping it light today, guys. I don't have an agenda or anything. Just chit chatting with you guys about how to be in this field, what I've been doing, and just giving you an honest take on what's been going on. Somebody said at least a security plus, like 2 years within 2 years. At least a security plus within 2 years. That's your goal. Let me see. Did he say anything else? Somebody on TikTok said, they said that I think they're saying that they're going to get a security plus within the next 2 years. Security plus is a great certification, by the way. Let me see here. I've got some other people chiming in here from YouTube. Incognito says, is GRC a good field to enter for someone looking for it to go 100% worldwide remote? If so, what position should I look for? So if your top goal is to go 100% remote, you need to open up your horizons a bit. Don't just look at GRC positions. I will answer your question because I've done exactly what you're talking about. Let me answer your question first. Is GRC a good field for someone trying to go 100% remote? I would say there's some parts of GRC that are good. The GRC is a very broad term. So that stands for governance, risk, and compliance, right? Governance is the management side. Is management means like people who are managing others, but also managing processes within an organization or within within a company, within a government, whatever. So that could be people, that can be systems, it could be processes, it could be documentation. They're managing what's going on, some aspect of the organization, right? So pretty straightforward governance. Risk is conducting assessments. That's like audits, assessments, making sure the security controls are in place and all that kind of stuff. And then compliance. Let me just explain each one, and then I'll kind of go into each one of how you can do it each part remotely, because I've done each one remotely. Compliance is what I'm doing right now. It's making sure that an organization is in line with whatever federal, state, or industry standards that they have to meet, right? Whether that's we have to do a certain amount of controls, and we got to make sure that those controls have these kind of documents, and then we got to make sure that we're in line with this. Oh, the framework has changed. Now we got to do this. Now we got to redo these documents. We got to do this. We've got to do these assessments annually. It's stuff like that's a lot of meetings and coordinating with different parts of the organization. That's compliance. So I've done remote work for each part of this. And I have exposure to each one. So let me start with G, management. So I've been working remotely for the last almost 10 years now. Sounds crazy to say. I mean, even my own head, it sounds crazy, but I've been doing this for about 10 years now. And my exposure to the management side of this doing remote work is that my managers, I personally don't usually want to do management. So I'll be working directly for my manager I'll be doing their work sometimes, with the exception of managing people. I'll be doing the work that sometimes they're supposed to be doing. I'll be working with them directly. My manager will be remote and I'll be remote. So that aspect of it is possible to do remotely. It's a lot of meetings if you're doing the governance, the risk, the management side remotely. It's a lot of meetings. But that said, you can still do, a lot of Zoom calls or a lot of, online meetings. So that doesn't exclude you from doing it. But I do notice this. Usually management positions, they usually have some requirement where at some point, the higher you go in the management space, especially if you're managing people, they expect you to be face to face from time to time. Like either going to the office sometimes or going to a site or something like that, you usually have, the higher you go, the more they're expecting of you to go where they want you to go, or go to conferences or stuff like that. They'll have the funding for you to do it, but um, as far as managing people, the higher you go, the more they're expecting you go where they tell you to go. Um, so that's that aspect. The documentation piece kind of spills into compliance. So I'll talk about that one separately. That's kind of what I'm doing now. So what I've noticed is one of the best ones to do remotely is going to be the risk side and the compliance side. The risk one I've done before too, where I was a risk assessor, um, and I was remote. I was 100% remote, and I could travel. I was traveling to other countries and stuff. The issue with some of the risk and assessor jobs is sometimes you got to go on site, because the assessment is, a lot of times there's a part of the assessment or looking at risk that's physical security. You have to do some physical security. You got to look at what's going on with the area and the environment that's protecting those systems. So I would have to travel. So if I was remote, I would have to basically travel back to the US and then go remote and then come back and then go wherever I was going to go. So that's kind of the challenge with the risks jobs. But that said, I'm sure there's risk jobs that are 100% remote that don't require that much travel or any travel. But I didn't find any when I have not found any. But that's not to say that they don't exist. Because there was one job I was offered where I was an assessor, but I had to do 100% of it remotely. Um, so that it does exist. Compliance. That's what I currently do. So the last two jobs I've had has been just straight up compliance. Compliance is making sure they have documentation. I've got to rewrite their policies sometimes and that kind of thing. I would say these are the best jobs within GRC for remote travel, because I don't have to. I mean, if I want to, my last job, put it to you this way, my last job, I could have lived in Thailand or Singapore or Nigeria, wherever I wanted to be, just doing documents. In fact, my boss, one of them was in Ireland and one of them was in India. So one guy's in India, one guy's in Ireland or whatever, visiting family, and I was here in the U.S. So I could have been wherever I wanted to be. Now we were just writing policies. We had a policy, we were rewriting it and then giving it to the customer, meeting with them once a week or twice a week, whatever the requirement was, figuring out how it was written. So the policy writing, that was 100% remote, no stress. It was cool. So can you do GRC? Yes. But if you really want to do 100% remote worldwide, open up your horizons. Don't just look at GRC jobs. Um, look at your own skill set and figure out. What I do is I put multiple resumes out, like different resumes. Like one of my skill sets is GRC type stuff, right? So I have a resume specifically for GRC stuff. And I have another one where my skill set was cyber security analyst work. And I had two separate resumes, right? And you can do this on LinkedIn, on Indeed.com, and I think Monster and Dice will allow you to put out two different resumes that focus on, you're not lying. What you're doing is you're focusing all the things you did for cybersecurity analyst on one, and then all the things you did that were GRC stuff on another. So have two of them out. And then right on the top of them, say 100% remote. Here's where they get you. So the worldwide part is challenging because you're kind of narrowing it down from, like, it's already hard enough to get a remote job. To go overseas is much harder because a lot of the remote jobs, more than 50% of them require that you stay in the United States. There are some that don't care where you are, but in my experience, more than 50% require that you be in a certain vicinity. And that might just be because I work mostly government type jobs and for these gigantic companies or whatever. So that have a contract with the government. So that might be it might be just my own anecdotal experience. Like maybe I'm a little bit biased because of my perspective. Most of the jobs that I am qualified for are government type jobs because that's what I've been doing. real far down that rabbit hole. So most of those jobs require that you stay within the continental United States and you can't be overseas or whatever. But that said, I did have a job working private sector, and that one I could go anywhere, you know. But a lot of times you get in the job and they're saying, look, there's certain countries you can't go to. They'll have a policy, they'll have a travel policy, and they'll be like, you have to sometimes that you have to stay in the state. It's 100% remote, meaning you can work from home, but you can't work outside the state for too long, or you can't. Usually, it's not the state's fine. You can't work outside the country. That's usually what it is. And some of them say you can go wherever you want, but you can't go at least 5 countries. You cannot go, or they'll say you can go wherever you want, but just let us know where you're gonna go before you go. So, I hope that answers your question. Let me see. Beach Material says, does it make sense to get a security plus if you're going into GRC and cybersecurity auditing? Yeah, absolutely. Especially you've been IT for a while and you're trying to transition into, a cybersecurity position. Yes. Security plus it's one of the best certifications. It's one of the best because it's highly marketable. It's highly marketable. Everybody knows what Security Plus is. If they don't know what a Security Plus is, they don't know what cybersecurity is at all. Everybody knows what a cybersecurity plus is. A Security Plus is. The curriculum is really good. If you're transitioning from a basic IT job or a network engineering job or wherever, customer support, technical, when you go through the Security Plus, it's focusing in on the things you really need to know. And if you didn't know what to do before, it's going to guide you in the direction of where to go and where to focus your energy. So that's what makes those two things is what make the Security Plus very, very powerful. So I would highly recommend you doing the security. If you don't already have it, it's a great first security certification. If you already have a CISSP, there's no need for it. If you have a CISA already, if you have a CISM, if you have a ISACA, C-RISC, there's no need to take the Security Plus anymore. It's not going to help you. But if it's your first security certification, or if you don't have any security certifications, hell yeah, it's the best one that an entry level or a mod, not even entry level. If you are an intermediate IT person, it is the most effective certification that you can take because people know what it is. You can get paid more money, more jobs will be open to you. It's a great certification. And that is for GRC as well as for cybersecurity auditing. Auditing is going to require, at some point, you're going to have to get a more specialized certification, but Security Plus is a great way to get your foot in the door, to really specialize going forward. All right, I got a few other questions. I got some stuff on TikTok. I heard TikTok's going away, guys. What do you guys think about that? Are you guys happy about that? Do you think that this is going to take? Do you guys think that TikTok is taking any less of your information than Meta is? I want to hear your honest opinion about that. What do you think about that? I meant a better understanding of frameworks. Let me see here. A list of Security Plus within 2 years, and I meant a better understanding of security frameworks. Bryce says, how to get projects so a person can build skills and fill in the resume. How do you get projects? Oh, okay. I think I know what you mean. Like some people, if they don't have experience, if they don't have a way to get their foot in the door in a company or for whatever reason, one of the things that students do is to do projects. They'll do projects and then put those projects on their resume. It's a tertiary way to go about it. Like the best thing you can do is work for a company or be a freelancer and do work for organizations as a freelancer. You know what I mean? Like if you already have a skills to to set up networks. What you could do is be a freelancer and go in your local community and set up networks and put that on your resume, that you are a freelancer. The job description, the job title is a freelancer. You put your location, the time that frame that you did it, and then you'll put all the things. You'll go down the list of all the experience that you had as a freelancer. You set up networks. You removed viruses. You set up people's systems. You put security features on people's systems. You ran scans on networks. You ran a scan on your university's wireless network. Those are some things you can do as a freelancer that are projects that are not tertiary, right? First thing you could do, the best thing you can put on a resume is you worked for XYZ organization. Your organization set up networks. Your organization had to use HIPAA frameworks to you had to use HIPAA, you had to use CSF, you had to use NIST 800, you had to use ISO 27001, whatever, right? That's the best stuff you can put on your resume. What makes it even better is if you worked for NASA, if you worked for Department of Defense, you worked for Bank of America, you worked, like, those are huge names. Like, everybody knows what those are. That's the best stuff you could put on your resume. So let's say you don't have that, right? Most people don't. They never work for those places. So what else can you do? Well, secondary would be something like you're a freelancer. That means you worked on your own. You had your own company, and you don't even have to list a company. You didn't have to have an LLC or whatever. You could just say freelancer. And as a freelancer, you ran scans. You set up Wi-Fi networks. Those are things that you can do right now. You could set up networks for your cousin's company. You can set up networks for you have to know how to do it. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's exempt from the knowledge. Nobody's exempt from the knowledge. I've met lots of people who didn't have the experience who got in, but they had to have the knowledge. So anyway, first tier is to have work. You work for NASA. You work for Department of Defense. You worked for XYZ LLC. You guys did X, Y, and Z experience. And then secondary, freelance work. You were a freelancer. You ran scans. You did whatever, right? Tertiary, projects. You were at your college. You guys set up a net. I remember, like, when I was going through college, what we did was we set up firewall. We had this lab where we set up everybody brought in their own computers. We set up firewalls on those computers. We had our instructor, he had brought in like firewall software. Some of us downloaded free firewalls online, and we set up a network, and then all of us had like a firewall. We had a network with all these firewalls on it. Sounds ridiculous, but the thing is, it allowed us to set up firewall rules. It allowed us to get familiar with how it works. Like, if somebody had an attack system on our network, what does it look like to the firewall when I'm looking at it? What does it look like when it's being blocked? Does it look like anything? Are there logs being produced? What's going on with it? Right? It gave me a hands-on, so that I could put on my resume. Other projects, setting up networks, building computers, building gaming systems. You're showing exposure to the technology with those projects. Like I said, it's tertiary. It's not the best thing that you can put on your resume, but it's something. It's showing that, hey, I've done this. I have some hands-on. If you want to have some examples of projects, I would look on LinkedIn, look at how people have worded projects on their resume. I would also look at ChatGPT and another AI-based LLM, large language model, would be Genesis, Gemini. I keep calling it Genesis. Gemini from Google. Those are pretty good. There's a couple other good ones out there, but those are the ones that come to mind. Perplexity, that's another good one. Go there and then ask it, like, give me examples of an ATS style resume that lists projects in the resume, and it'll give you a bunch of different examples, and then use those to put that stuff into your own right. Or if you don't have the projects, go out and do those projects that would be good for you to do. That's your question, right? What kinds of projects could you do for GRC type stuff? You could review policies for the school, for local organizations. A lot of times their policies are on the internet. Thing is, before you get to the projects of doing GRC, you have to know basic IT. So it's kind of hard to talk if you don't have basic IT. Then everything I'm telling you is not going to be very useful to you. Your first step is to get as much skill set as you can on basic information technology. That's going to be the best thing you can do. The most effective, the greatest impact to your career is going to be to focus your time on basic information technology first, getting your foot in the door and getting your hands dirty on basic information technology. Let me see here. How hard is it to have a job with only a security plus and a security clearance with no experience? It's going to be difficult, and even if you find a position, it's not going to be the ideal one, right? You're not a lot of the myself included. Like a lot of us talk about, oh yeah, I've traveled to, I make 100,000. I'm traveling, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and man, I'm free now, and all this shit, right? Listen, this shit didn't come free. I had to pay dues to get to this point, and look where I'm at. It's not like I'm a millionaire. I mean, this shit is hard. So what I'm trying to get at to answer your question is the first job you get's gonna suck. Just look forward to it. Just be like, okay, it's gonna suck, and go in there with a smile on your face and do what you got to do. The first job I had doing IT was in the military. Man, I went to 2 different war zones. Shit wasn't fun. And then when I got out, I mean, forget about that. Like most people aren't gonna have that experience, but forget about that. Um, I got out the military, and I was like a field tech, and we were traveling 60% a year or something crazy, 50%. I don't know. We're traveling a lot, and I had a baby at the time. I had my first child, and I was traveling a lot. And then the job after that, it calmed down a little bit, you know. But every time I've tried to level up, I've had to take an L, man. I had to do something crazy. Like I mean, one time when I went from GRC to cybersecurity analyst work, I was working overseas. That's one thing you can do with your clearance, with the security plus and no experience. What you can do is look for overseas jobs. If you have a family, it's going to be tough, man. It's not easy to leave your family for 6 months or something with the fucking military. It sucks. They suck. The job's going to suck. Probably the country's going to suck. It's going to suck. But they're looking for somebody who's willing to suck it up and do what you got to do. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is take a local field tech job like I did and travel. Like they'll have you travel around, like you might have to travel around your state or whatever. They'll give you like a truck. Might have to go from place to place and fix people's laptops or computers or whatever. But that 2 or 4 or 5 months of experience, the exposure to that, you put that on your resume, and then that you're using that as a stair step to go to another level. You might get lucky and get some job where you don't have to travel, but it's going to be in the office, and you're going to go there and they're going to give you on the job training. Those jobs do exist, but they do expect you to have a high level of knowledge. You can't just walk in there not knowing anything. So I hope that helps you. It's not easy with a clearance. That does help you out quite a bit. I can tell you that. With a clearance, it's going to open up a lot of jobs overseas because a lot of those jobs overseas are looking for people with a clearance. So you might have to move because a lot of jobs on the East Coast are looking for people with a clearance, and that they just want you to have some knowledge in a clearance. And if you have a security plus, that's great, but you might have to relocate. So is it going to be easy? No, you're gonna have to take an L somewhere. Somewhere in this journey, you're gonna have to take one because that experience is golden, man. In this field, it's absolutely golden. If you can get that experience, man, you're more than halfway there. If you can get that experience, more than halfway, it opens up all the doors. It's not gonna start off great. It's gonna be difficult in the beginning, but it's a start. It's more than a lot of people are able to do. Cisco Kid 49 says, "Thanks for all you do. Retiring military with certs and clearance. Would you go? Thanks, by the way. Would you go the ISSO, ISSM, or Tech Program Manager? Pros and cons. It depends on what you want. Cisco. It depends on what you want to do. For me, I do not want to be a manager personally. Like the whole program manager thing. For me, I just it's just not attractive for me personally, right? For me personally, it's not attractive. Every time some of my coworkers or my peers are like, "Oh, they want to be they're a manager, they got promoted." For me, I'm like, "Damn, like that's a nightmare." you know, I've been approached before, many more than once, like, "Hey, do you want to be? We need this somebody in this position. Like, would you like to be?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to. I don't want to do a man." Very respectfully, I say no. Personally, I don't like doing it. Um, ISO is what I do currently. It's just less intrusive. It's easy work for me. And ISSM is I kind of do a little bit of that sometimes. They have me do some ISSM type work, but mostly it's just documentation type stuff. So the pros and cons. So let's start off with program managers. So program managers are really outside of doing the technical stuff. Like they get more and more and more outside of the technical stuff, less and less. They have to know what's going on technically, but they're not really in the weeds with the technology. And not a lot of times they have to talk to the actual people on the ground doing the actual information technology work. They a lot of times they're not the guys working with them. I suppose they're managing them and stuff like that, but it's just more far removed than I want to be from the actual technical side. And it's a lot of they have to play a little bit more of the politics, which I don't like. For me, it's a con. Maybe for you it'd be good, but for me, I hate it. I hate having to pull my punches. I hate having to talk, having to say. I hate having to dress things up to make it look better. I just want to tell people what's going on without having to do double speak. Um, for me, it's a con. I don't like playing. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm trying to paint some kind of grim picture all the time. But for me personally, I don't like to play the politics side. For me, it's a con. The pros is that program managers can level up quickly with getting paid because there's a lot of upward momentum for program managers. A lot because if even if they're not paying you here as a program manager, if you go to the next place, they sometimes they're paying a lot, and it might even be a door into doing like directors or C-level execs and stuff like that. You're getting exposure to a lot of the things that technical guys don't won't have to see. Like them when they're building the contract, sitting in with the actual the CIO, and seeing what they have to deal with, and it just changes your whole mindset because you're in the room with those people who are the big decision makers. So the pros is that you're going to make more money. The downside is that you got to play the politics and stuff like that. For me, that's the downside. And you're going to be more far removed from the actual technology. And ISSO and ISSM, sometimes those roles kind of blur together, but the biggest difference is an ISSM is the person who's going to be managing other ISSOs, right? They might do some of the same work, but an ISSO is not going to be usually managing other ISSOs. Not directly managing them. So the pros and cons of each. So the pros of an ISSM is that it's upward momentum because you're a manager. Like, you're in the room with other managers from other fields and stuff. You're seeing a whole different aspect of the organization's, how they lead the organization in a certain direction, and then you have more power if you're into that, into other, how the whole thing's run. They're giving you the power to say, okay, I don't care how you do it, it needs to get done. Here's your resources. Here are all the people underneath you that are going to do the work, and you're not doing it. You're telling other people, hey, do the X, Y, and Z. So it kind of, I guess that's the pros to it. The cons is that you have to manage people, and sometimes people are like, it's like herding cats, because some people are like, oh, why didn't you do your time card? Like, why didn't you do your aren't you supposed to do this? Like, and you have like 4 people underneath you, and you got to manage all these people, and they're not doing stuff they're just supposed to do for whatever reason, and you're like, oh my goodness, like, what's going on? And then you have to assume some of the bad things in each one of the ISOs. Some ISOs have an attitude. Sometimes their system's hard. Sometimes there's some kind of thing going on with them or the system or the customer or whatever, and you've got to be in the room with all the main problems. So that's one of the bad things about an ISSM. ISSO also has pros and cons. ISSO pros would be, a lot of times people just leave you alone and you just do your work. There's like, look, do these 15 documents. I'll come back in a week, and if it's done, it's done. So it gives you a little bit of leeway to just do your thing and do the document and then be done with it. You still kind of in the weeds sometimes with working with scans. You might be in the weeds with actually implementing controls in some cases. You might be in the weeds on like making the documentation, making the system security plans, making the policies, writing the policies, editing, whatever. So you're kind of still doing the work, which might be a good or bad. Depends on, for me, it was good. Cons with it is that you don't control, you're not a manager. So people are controlling you. Other people are telling you, hey, you're supposed to do this on the 15th. Where is it? Where's this work at? You just gotta tap dance. Like, you don't have a choice. You're not a manager. So you got to do whatever tune they're playing at that moment. You got to dance. Right? If they're going to change the channel to country music, guess what? You're gonna be line dancing. Whatever the music of the day is, that's what the hell you're gonna be doing. So that's not always good. It sucks. Like, 1 minute they're telling you to fucking line dance, and the next thing, okay, now we want you to break dance. And you're like, what the music was this? It's frustrating, So so those are the pros and cons of each. Money wise, probably the program managers probably are going to be on their way to making more money faster. This is not always the case. You can be an ISO and make more money than a program manager and vice versa. But I'm just saying, usually program managers, we're not talking about project managers. We're talking about program managers. There's a difference. Program managers are going to usually make more money, are going to be on the way to make more money than an ISO. In ISSM and program managers, probably somewhere around the same. Anything with manager in it is going to make more money faster, because they can always move up the chain or be moved to this other be a program manager on this other thing, and this makes a little bit more money, or move to another company and then that company pays managers more money or whatever. So those are the pros and cons. I hope that helps out. That's just my perspective, by the way. Just take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, but this is definitely coming from real experiences that I've had, and but don't take my word for it. Let's see. Somebody said, I'm new to compliance, specifically control testing. I have a tough time with my walkthrough with control owners, figuring out exactly what they ask. Any tips? This is definitely a challenge, Jason. Like, you're not alone. This has been my challenge from the beginning. Knowing what they want, especially when they're scope creep and they change their minds, it can be very frustrating. It's one of the hardest things about GRC work, compliance work, is that the organization will set down certain things that they want in accordance to whatever requirements, and you are interpreting what they want, and you start going that direction, and then they're like, no, that's not what I said. We're supposed to do this. Why didn't you do this? You had 3 weeks to do it and it's not done. What's going on? This is not what I asked for. I can't listen. I'm currently dealing with this kinds of stuff. It's one of the biggest challenges to this is called scope creep, and then sometimes it's like they just change their mind. Scope creep means the scope started here, now they want you to do this, and then you do this, and then they go, oh, now we want you to do this. It's very, very frustrating. It's in every place I've gone to, same thing. Where I've had success, where I've had success is to be very clear in the beginning of what the expected results are supposed to look like, and don't try to guess, and ask as many dumb questions as possible. Even if you think it's a dumb question or it's going to reveal how much you don't know, try to get that information as best you can. Where I've found success is where if I've something is not clear, like we'll go to a meeting. Let me give you an example. I go to a meeting and one of the managers is telling me to do X, Y, and Z. And this is a high level manager. Everybody respects this person, and they're just saying, "And we want this, and I want this," and I'm taking notes. I'm like, "Okay, they want this and this." I'm quiet because I'm just taking notes. I'm typing everything. Sometimes we're recording the session or whatever. I can go back and figure out what they wanted or whatever. Normally, I'm just taking notes. Go back to my notes, and I made points. I said, okay, they want this for sure. They want this for sure. They want this for sure. And then there'll be something on there I'm not clear about, right? And I don't want to ask this person because they're going to be like, well, you didn't know this? To be honest, it's better sometimes to just tell them you don't know. Like if you don't know, just tell them like, listen, I don't know. I was on a meeting a few weeks ago, and that exact thing happened. I'm like, they're asking me, well, don't you know this? I'm like, no, I don't know this. I don't know this. Why don't you tell me? Why don't you tell me? And I didn't know. Like they're like, they start breaking everything down. They start talking to me like I was a kid. It was very frustrating. The person's not very good with people. But I just listen. I'm getting paid. I'm getting I have benefits that I have to have. I didn't say shit. I just shut my mouth, took more notes, and did the best I could. And then what I do is before I get too far is I'll say, is this what you mean? Right? I'll have a separate meeting with that person, just them alone if I can, and say, is this, or I'll text them like, is this what you're, email them? Is this what you mean? And give them time to look at it, right? And they look at it and say, no, it's supposed to be like, this is close, but you forgot this, you forgot that. Don't be afraid to ask questions and get the expected results off the rip. And then when they tell you, do a little bit of it and say, is this what you mean? Am I going the right direction? Before I work on this for 3 weeks and you tell me this is garbage, is this, now you wouldn't say these exact words, but this is what you're thinking. You just present it to them and say, ma'am, sir, is this what you meant? Here's how far I've gotten with what you wanted. Is this what you meant? Right? It's better to ask those questions and look like a fool in the beginning than to get 3-4 months into it, because in compliance you can go way off track in another direction, and they're giving us like the great thing about compliance is also one thing that gets us in trouble is that we have all this time to get these large projects done. And it's kind of like when I was in the military, they had this thing where they would drop us off in this field, and we were supposed to, it was called land navigation. They gave us a map and they gave us a compass, and they showed us how to, what's called shoot an azimuth. Like it's where you would mark one point of where you are and then use the compass to figure out where you're supposed to be. You do this line, and this line would go across all this terrain, up and down ravines, through trees, all this stuff. But you would shoot this all the way across the map. If you got it off by 1 degree, by the time you got from point A to point B, you were way off on point Z. Like if it's 1 degree off, does this make sense? If you, in the beginning, if you start going in this direction, by the time you get to where you're supposed to be, you're way, way off. And compliance, one of the things is they're giving you a lot of time to do work. And if you didn't get that point of where they wanted to go first in the beginning, you're going to be way off by the time you get there. This happens a lot to me. It's very challenging. You have to ask questions in the beginning to see exactly what they want. And sometimes you can't win with the client or customer because they're constantly moving the goalposts and stuff, right? But that the best thing you can do is in the very beginning is figure out what they want. What are the expected results, and get documentation from them. Email them and keep that email. Say, is this what you want? Get an email response. Yes, this is what I want. This is exactly what I want. Keep that email, because if they come back and say, oh, this is what I wanted, this is, hey, what is this? This is not what I wanted. You can say, well, you said that on this day, this time last year, you said that this is what you wanted. Now, if I can change it, but this is why it looks like this, because I asked you and you said, X, Y, and Z. So it's challenging, Jason, and that's one of the biggest issues with this field of compliance. With controls, especially important is to figure out what the expected results are supposed to be. What do they expect in the end? What is it supposed to look like in the end? And double check it before you get too far down the road. And trust your team. That's another thing, is there's subject matter experts who are there who knows the firewall, who knows how audit logs are supposed to look, who knows, talk to them and ask them. Like, you're not going to be the expert on everything. They are the expert on certain things. You got to rely on their expertise and trust that they know what they're talking about, and get them in a room and say, listen, I don't know what this is. Like, what do you like? Let's figure out how we can get the expected results. And if we can't, then we got to figure something else out. I hope that makes sense. Let me see. I've got some folks on TikTok talking here. Let me see what you guys are saying. How hard is it to find a job? Let's go. I answered that one already. I just secured my third internship. It's under technical management. Can that relate to GRC roles? Yeah, it can. There's certain things that you can do as a technical manager in GRC certain things that you can do in GRC. Yeah, thanks. I already have one. There's certain things that you can do in GRC that might have something to do with under a technical manager. Look for things like creation of policies, creations of standard operating procedures. Look for things like scans, conducting the scans, managing the scans, looking at scan results. That's the R in GRC, the risk portion. Look for things like making sure the organization is in line with whatever higher level directives or standards or laws that you're supposed to have. Things like that would be in alignment with GRC. Governance, the whole governance thing would be in alignment with GRC. So you'd want to put those types of things on your resume. If you've used tools like, there's a few tools off the top of my head. There's one called EMAS. There's one called Exacta. There's one called CSAM. There's one called Archer. There's some program and project management tools like Jira. There's tools like Agile. There's tools and processes like Agile, and I don't know that many of those. So any of those tools, if you happen to be using some of those tools that you don't think anything of, or you don't feel like using them or whatever, they just, a ServiceNow is another one. Ticketing systems, all of these, if you have exposure to these, you want to put that kind of stuff on your resume, because those are the tools that we use normally in information technology, and definitely being used right now in GRC. So put that stuff on your resume once you do that. Just got a Cisco Cyber Ops. What search should I do next? I've not heard of the Cisco Cyber Ops. All the Cisco certifications are pretty cool, but I would highly, if you don't already have one, a Security Plus is a real good one. It's very, if you already have it, then the next one you might want to start looking at is a professional level certification. Professional level certs is like a CISSP, a CISA, a CCNA, a CCNP, certifications like that. A CCNA actually is really good too. But I don't know what field you're in, so it also depends. Certifications also depend on what field you're in. Live and Live and Learn says I doubt they'll do. I doubt that they'll do it. ByteDance and TikTok did legal. So they did all the legal stuff they're supposed to do. It's horrible about TikTok. Meta is worse too. Is worse too. Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do with this whole thing. My only thing about the whole ending TikTok thing is, and I thought about it, like I was thinking, that I don't trust the Chinese government at all. I know that they do bad stuff. I do pay attention to what they've done over the years. As a cybersecurity person, like the more you get into it, the more you realize countries are attacking each other on a regular basis, and China is one of the greatest offenders, where they're financing hackers to steal information and stuff. It's really bad, and they also take a lot of the proprietary information, and they do control some of the companies within their country, and that may include ByteDance. But what they've already done, I believe, is that they've moved the U.S. portion of TikTok to like Texas or something, so it's controlled within the United States. They already did all that stuff that the government originally wanted them to do. So to me, it's right now all they're doing is a bunch of political posturing to make themselves look good because it's almost election time. And I don't think it's a good look, to be honest with you. But hopefully younger people will vote. I think if younger people vote, then they won't be doing stupid shit like this, because they'll vote. Once the Gen Z guys start voting in mass, they'll control more of what's going on technically, because old people don't know what the hell's going on. They don't know what's going on, man. They don't understand technology. They don't understand what's going on. Otherwise, my thing is, like, if you're going to shut down, if you have everybody at the same standard, if you're going to do this, if you're going to put pressure on ByteDance for TikTok, then do the same thing for Meta, because Meta is so bad with our information. I feel more scared about putting my stuff on Facebook than I do on TikTok, to be honest with you. If you just take some time and look at what Meta over the years has allowed people to do with our information. And it's terrifying. It's really terrifying. So, I personally don't put any real information on Facebook because of that. Yeah, I still have. Okay, so off my soapbox here. I work as an ISO, but I don't want to stay in a compliance role. Do you have any suggestions? Yeah, so I also at one time went from being being an ISO doing compliance stuff, and transition into cybersecurity analyst work. The first thing I would do is look into what you want to do. And maybe you want to do network engineering. Maybe you want to do cybersecurity analyst work. Maybe you want to do forensics, whatever. Figure out what you want to do. And then look at the field. Look at that field that you want to get in. For example, if it's forensics, there's certain tools that they're going to want you to be familiar with. There's certain things that methodologies they're going to want you to be familiar with. There's certain skill sets they're going to want you to be able to do. Learn that stuff first, right? And then start learning those as much as possible. Start learning that stuff. Get familiar with it, and then start seeking out those jobs, like entry-level jobs into those fields. That's kind of what I did. So that's what you want to do. Get familiar with the tool sets and the methodologies, and then start putting them in on your resume. Because once you're knowledgeable, you can say familiar with. It's a sneaky way to get it on your resume. Like, let's say let's say you want to be in forensics, right? But you're in compliance right now. So you had to learn, that one of the tools that they use is FTK, which is some kind of forensics tool. You download FTK, like the trial version of it, and learn the basics of how to use it. Maybe watch some YouTube videos. If you can, take some courses on Udemy or whatever. Get familiar with it and then put that on your resume. Familiar with FTK, familiar with Silk. That's another tool that they use. Familiar with Encase, familiar with, right? It's a sneaky way to get in there. And then on the top of your resume, put looking for a role in forensics, digital forensics, right? And then of course you want to put as much as you can any skill sets you already have and already have done with your role as a compliance person in forensics. Because in compliance, one of the good things about it is that we have some exposure in many aspects of security. Like you have to have done some security. You had to have some exposure to security doing compliance work, and so many different parts of security, with security, implementing security controls, being a part of assessing controls, looking at, you may have looked at audit law, at the scan results, or had to analyze, had to interpret them, stuff like that. Those could help you with any number of different cybersecurity roles that you want to transition into. When I made the transition from ISO work to cybersecurity analyst work, they gave me a bunch of on-the-job training. I learned, they walked me through how to use a bunch of tools, a bunch of stuff, but I had to come in with some knowledge of what we were going to do. And that's what you're going to have to do too. And then also look at what certifications also that they have. Like if in forensics, there's a few digital forensics certifications that you would want to get if that's what you wanted to do. If you were trying to be an analyst, you might want to do CYSA Plus, or you might want to do one of the SANS courses like GCIA or something. Like you want to do some kind of like something in line with that field you're trying to get into. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. What's an area I can specialize in to make the most money? Probably be a manager. A management probably is the best upward mobility into making money. Other than that, it'd probably be to start a business. You could probably, the fastest way as a compliance person to make money, I mean, to be honest with you, is you could go on SAMS.gov and make your own compliance company and look for contracts as a compliance guy. You wouldn't be doing the compliance stuff. You'd hire somebody else to do it. You don't even have to be in the same state to do it, man. That's one thing you could do. That'd probably be the most money you can make would be doing that, making your own business as a compliance person. That'd be the most money you can make. So that, me just looking into that, and kind of dipping my toe in it, like that opened my eyes. I'm like, oh man, that's where the money is. That's where the money is. But yeah, so that's one thing. Another thing you can do is be a manager. Management makes really good money. Right now, people are paying a pretty penny for cloud. They're just throwing money out there for cloud. Like if you're a high level cloud guy, you're going to make some pretty good money and going to be employed for a long time. So that's another place that you could look into. Most money be business though. Because you're not just talking about like 100,000, you're talking about millions, hundreds of thousands with business. Because you could make you could have a contract multiple organizations if you did it right. Let me see. I just applied everywhere. The third one, I had a mentor who was approved for intern. Oh man, that's great. People helping each other out in the comments. That's awesome. Okay, let me see here. Got some more comments. I'm not going to talk too long, guys, but I will take a few more questions. Let me try to go faster on these questions. I come from an IT sales, service sales background. What advice would you offer a person who is from an IT service sales background as a client partner for 12 years that's looking to transition into GRC and cybersecurity auditing? The risk portion. So you're trying to do the R in GRC, the risk portion of it. Um, let me see. What I would do is get get knowledgeable of the basics of cybersecurity best practices. And I know it sounds super simplified, but whenever I was doing risk analysis and assessing systems, that's what it basically came down to is the organization protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the system. And so what you would probably want to do, what I would do if I were you, if I was trying to transition into auditing, is do a try to get yourself into a more technical hands-on type role. Um, a technical hands-on type role where you're actually either maintaining or fixing systems. You could also do one where you were operating systems, as long as it was like analyst type work. Analyst type work. You want something technical, and here's why. The more exposure you have to hands-on, right? With sales, you have to know like the data on a specific service or system, right? And you have to be able to articulate to a potential client why they want this firewall or this service or whatever. But with hands-on, with managing a system or fixing or maintaining a system, you're not really trying to you're not trying to convince people. You're trying to fix a computer, a system. You're trying to fix that thing. And so it forces you to have problem solving skills. It forces you in situations where you have to solve a problem that's not just convincing somebody to buy something. You know what I mean? Like you have a problem and you have to come up with a solution. And you need exposure into that. And that right there, the problem solving will lead you to a lot of exposure to security, direct exposure to how security works, what's going on with security, how where are the weaknesses on a system. You're going to get exposure to all that kind of stuff. So that's one way that you can do it. That's one probably the best way to you, a longer route. But once you get to the end where you're going, you might not even want to do GRC. There'll be so many other things open to you, but you'll be super knowledgeable of how to do auditing and where to look. If you're doing risk analysis or you're doing scans, you'll know what you're looking at when you're looking at those scan results. You'll have you'll have direct experience in how to fix systems and what's going on. That's the best way to go. Another way you could go for GRC is to look deeper into the policy aspect. But I don't know how much hands-on you already have. I don't know how knowledgeable of IT you are. So at some point, you're gonna have to know about. You're gonna have to know basic IT. Like at some point, you're gonna have to crack open a book and start like really getting to know what's going on with the technology to get your foot in the door at a place where you are doing audits. But the thing is, if you want to do auditing, you have to have you're gonna have to have more knowledge than most people, IT wise. You're just gonna have to, because that's one of the hardest parts. Like risk analysis and assessing security controls is one of the most technical things that you can do. Like it's way more technical than the governance side. It's way more technical than the compliance side. If you only want to do compliance, that'd actually be easier. But you want to do risk. So you have to know, you of all people, definitely have to have more hands-on than most people. Hands-on with servers, hands-on with workstations, hands-on. Now there are other parts of auditing and assessment of assessing controls. Like there's assessors who only do policies, there's assessors who only do physical controls, there's different kinds of assessors, but you still have to know something about IT. But my recommendation would be get your foot in the door, transition from being a salesperson to be a hands-on technical person. And then from there, and do that for, I don't know, 6 to 8 months to get a feel for it, to get knowledgeable of it, and then level up into, you'll see other doors start to open once you start doing it. And you might not even, this is just the tip. This is one tip of the iceberg is the cybersecurity auditing. You might see some other stuff that you're like, whoa, what is this? That's happened to me several times. When I first went into IT, I wanted to do programming. I wanted to be a programmer. That's all I saw. That's all I wanted to do. But then when I learned more about it, I saw networking, and I was like, yo, I was so blown away and fascinated by networking that that's all I wanted to do. And so I started doing networking stuff. And then when I did networking for some time, and then GRC pays way more money. So I started doing, that's all I do now. So it's a winding road, but the first step you need to take is to get off to merge onto the interstate of actual hands-on IT stuff. That's probably not what you want to hear, but if you're trying to do auditing, there's really no way around it. Okay, let me see here. I got some other folks chiming in. I'm gonna go through these a little faster. Somebody said, Jada said, or you could make a home lab and practice in a virtual environment and gain some experience for your resume. Yeah, home lab is a really great way to get some skills and put familiar with scanning networks, familiar with setting up firewalls, from that kind of stuff. The learn technical skills takes time to learn properly. Absolutely. Gemini does well on cybersecurity steps, in my humble opinion. Yeah, I think it's pretty good for learning. The LLMs are really good for learning. Let me see here. What are your thoughts on FBI saying that China has infiltrated our network infrastructure? Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Parts of the network infrastructure. This is all just speculation. I'm just a civilian. I don't know. I'm not telling you anything that I know firsthand or anything. But I'll give you, here's something that'll open your eyes about what China has been doing. And it's not just on the government. They copy IP, intellectual property, from organizations, and they've done it with almost every major organization. But here's one for you. There was this jet, undeniable proof. What was that jet? There's a jet that came out. It was called let me see if I can get the name. Once you look this up, there'll be undeniable proof that they've been doing this for a long time. I mean, really, all you got to do is look at things like Huawei or some of the other ones that they copy directly from Cisco and Google. But let's put those aside. And I'm gonna send you down one rabbit hole if you really want to know. So there was a jet fighter, the F-22. So look this up if you really want to know. If you don't care, skip this. But look up the F-22 copied by China. the F-22 and the F-35. So this was technology that was stolen by China. And if you look at just pictures alone of the F-22 that was created by Lockheed Martin and the government and China's J-20, they look like exact replicas of one another. Now, keep in mind the F-22 fighter was classified. Like nobody knew when they were first making it and designing it. It was classified. They came one after another. Like one came out, and then right after that, the J-20 came out, and they look like absolute records. So what you want to do is type in F-22 and the J-20, space J-20, and just look at them side by side, and then look at the story of why they look so similar. That's it. That's all you got to do, and then you'll see that the whole term APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, comes from China infiltrating U.S. networks. They didn't just infiltrate the government. They infiltrated Lockheed Martin, Northrop, all kinds of companies have been infiltrated by China. And that's why the NIST CSF got created. Yeah, because governments hacking each other. And they're not the only one, by the way. And that's not to say the U.S. is not going into their networks to do whoever, like, you know what the deal, like, this is, governments are going against one another, but China is definitely stealing information from other, it's not even just the US, they're stolen from the EU, they stolen from any kind of country on the cutting edge of technology. They're very smart. So rather than spending $1 billion to do it themselves, they'll just steal it from you and then just make it better. That's all they've been doing. That's why their phones are better. That's why they're like a lot of their stuff that they've done. They just copied it from you, and then they made it better. That's what they did. I mean, look it up. This is not conspiracy theory. This is real. Let me see here. More stuff here. Okay, I already answered that one. What's the difference between GRC, cybersecurity analyst, and information system security officer? Okay, so here's the difference. As somebody who's done all these things, GRC is a very broad term. So GRC actually includes all the things you mentioned. It includes analyst work, it includes information system security officer work, and it includes several other things. So GRC, super broad. What's the difference between, that leaves us between cybersecurity analyst work and ISO work. And ISO is the classic GRC work. Like, that's doing documentation, it's doing making sure that systems are in compliance, having all the proper documentation, doing disaster recovery, impact assessments. It's basically like a high-level security guy, high-level security secretary, because you're doing so many documentation. It depends. Sometimes they're more technical than others. A cyber analyst is, whenever you use the term, first of all, companies can make a role with any kind of description or name and mix and match, right? But typically, if it's an analyst position, they're having to look at a lot of data, and then they're having to compare and contrast to figure something out, as a very simplified way of putting it. But I'll give you a specific example. So I was a cybersecurity analyst. I was at a security operations center. And what we did was we looked at all the logs coming in like, we were looking at all the activity on a network, all activity that's coming inside the network, going out of the network, going in stuff that's going, and we're trying to figure out, has anybody infiltrated our network? Is there anything going on that people doing stuff they shouldn't be doing? Is there Is there somebody trying to break into a system? Is there, and all the logs are telling us this. And all day we're just looking at all these logs and analyzing all this information to figure out, to see if we can come up with actionable data, use this information to take action on something, respond to an incident, detect and monitor potential security incidents. So we just got taking all this data for hours and hours and hours and figure out if there's any actions we need to take and handle that incident. Whereas an information system security officer, I'm doing a lot of meetings. I'm not really looking at a lot of data. Well, actually, sometimes we're looking at scan. It depends on the position. Sometimes you are. In this current position I'm in, I do look at scans will come in and I'll have to look at the scans, but it's not the same as what I was doing as a cybersecurity analyst, because in that one, I was literally looking at live data that was moving across the screen like the Matrix. With this one, they'll run a scan. I get the scan and I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, do we have security on this particular system? According to this, we have this vulnerability. We have this vulnerability. How can we fix this? I better set up a meeting to see if we can fix this thing. And then how quickly are we supposed to fix it? Oh, we couldn't fix it in time. Okay, we've got to do this document to see if we can accept the risk on this, or we can do some other kind of mitigation to fix this, to make sure that our security posture is good. So it's two different things. That's the differences between the two. A cybersecurity analyst a lot of times is like a shift work, 12-hour shifts or whatever. And information security officers, 8 hours, Monday through Friday. And they're not usually monitoring traffic like a cybersecurity analyst is doing. And a GRC, it's so all encompassing that it can be, GRC is like a huge term. Like, it's not just ISO work. It's also risk analyst work. It can also be management type work. It's really a big umbrella. So I hope that answers your question. Let me see here. Any other questions? Somebody said for auditing MITRE, NIST 853 for the government, and NIST 800-171 for non-government. And for assessors roles, look for control assessor roles. I use EMAS and 853. This man knows what he's in the weeds. MITRE is a lot more fun in my humble opinion. MITRE has some really cool stuff. I like their attack framework. They have some really cool stuff in attack. Okay, let me see here. Just answering some stuff on TikTok. Trying to get out of the help desk, but should I commit to this industry? Will automation phase me out in 20 years? I think there will always be room. I think in the next 10 years, within the next 10 years, there's going to be room for the traditional help desk person. I think that it's not going to be phased out as much as it's going to evolve. Like help desk, GRC work, risk analysts, it's going to evolve. It's not going to look the same, but we're going to have something similar to it that's dealing with different technology. And then over the next 10 years, there's still going to be a need for people who know information technology, if nothing else, to manage the automation that's there. Because the automation is not, it's like a firewall. People think the firewall is like a panacea for all security, but it's not, and I don't think AI is too, and neither is automation. Like there's gonna be a need. Is it gonna eliminate some jobs? Yeah, I think for sure. Like there's gonna be some jobs that are gonna get eliminated, like gone. There just won't be a need for them anymore. But there's gonna be a need for help desk type positions. It's just going to look different. Maybe we won't call it help desk anymore. And the same thing with security. There's going to be a need for it. Will there be less jobs? Maybe. I don't know. And should I commit to this industry? Um, for me, I can only speak from my own experience, and I could say graduating from and evolving from the help desk and going into specialized skills allowed me to be in a position where it's going to be a really long time. Uh, it's going to be a really long time before my job is completely phased out. And before that happens, it'll evolve into something else. Because what I'm doing is making sure that the organization is in compliance. And so with automation, automation still has to be in compliance with certain laws. It's very, very important that it's in compliance because there's safety things to consider with AI, especially. There's a lot of safety issues with AI. It can just go right off the rails really fast. It can go right off the rails and risk a company's money, their reputation, their livelihood. They're not going to put that in the hands of an AI that doesn't have a handler. Come on. So I would say specialize in your field. Specialize, and that's going to do a couple things. It's going to make it so that you're indispensable. That you're even like if it is dispensable, it'll evolve into something else. It'll evolve with the technology rather than you being phased out. And also it's going to make you more money. So stay in the field and then just get more. And it doesn't have to be what I do. Like it could be, there's a few areas that you could do. You could do cloud, specialize in cloud. AI is built on cloud, automation built on cloud. It could be networking. Networking is the lifeblood and breath of all technology. Most systems that are high level have to have some sort of network involved with it. In order to connect to the cloud, it has to be on a network first. So cloud technology, networking technology, compliance technology, specialize, 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 specialize. The general jobs are getting taken out, are going to evolve. I don't think they're going to go away. I think they'll just evolve. That's just my own opinion about it. Let me see. Does it make sense to master NIST CSF, RMF 800, etc. if I want to work in the private sector, private organizations? Yeah. So one of the surprising things that's I recently, within the last few years, figured out is how effective NIST CSF and NIST 800 is. It's so effective that a lot of times the private sector is looking for somebody who knows NIST CSF or NIST 800 because it aligns with so many other um, frameworks and standards. I've been hired for positions to do ISO 27001 because I knew NIST 800. And when I in the interview, they were asking me flat out, "Do you know ISO 27001?" And I said, I haven't had an exposure to it, but I do know NIST 800 has a lot of parallels with it. And they said, and they asked me the next question. And then sure enough, I got that job and we were doing ISO 27001. I'm like looking at both of them. I'm like, I was laughing because I knew there's so much overlap between the two that I'd done a lot of the stuff in ISO 27001 and PCI DSS, by the way. Then they said, hey, here's I was in that place and we said, okay, we got to do PCI DSS and we're going to do an assessment on the system for PCI. And we start doing it. And I'm like, this is exactly how you do one for NIST 800. So yes, there's a special, if you know NIST CSF, if you know RMF and you know NIST 800, it's going to be much easier to do the other control. There's certain ones that that if you know these ones, these other ones, you'll be able to pick them up very quickly. And ISO 27001 is another one. These are standards and frameworks that are so broad. They capture so much of the best practices that you have to do for a medium or a large organization that you're going to be able to pick up PCI DSS. You're going to be able to pick up HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley. All the other ones just kind of fall in line with these larger. Somebody said, "Where is Yuri?" Yuri is married, living her best life. Go talk to her. Go ask her how she's doing. What do you think about commercial spyware firms? Um, Commercial spyware firms. Do you mean like companies that have spyware and their whole business is to just go out and infiltrate other companies? They're making money. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think it's ethical. Um, Hopefully they reap what they sow. Can I make good money as a Python developer? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Python is hella Python's awesome. So Python is right now, so the best script that you can learn, the best scripting that you can learn, one of the best is definitely Python. Like if I was to say PowerScript or something, that's if you're in a Windows environment. But Python is good everywhere. And a lot of times the people who know Python are good in any place that they go to. Um, and Python is really good for AI. So apparently, if you know, this is crazy, but if you know Python, you can make all kinds of scripts to pass information to and from AI, which is very useful because you can make a front end application that it allows the user to ask any question, takes their question, uses Python to send that question to an AI, a large language model, get the answer, use Python to pull the information back and deliver it to the user. So Python is extremely useful. Like if you're a Python developer, what I would do is I'd put some of my projects that I've done on GitHub to explain like what I've been doing and what my knowledge base is, and then I would link my GitHub portfolio on my LinkedIn page, on my Monster Dice page, put it on my resume to show people I am a legit Python developer. Yes, Python is fire. Also, Python's good for machine learning, data science, cybersecurity. All of those use Python. Python is fire right now. It's one of the most powerful languages right now in the this day and age, in this current time that we're in. Python is absolute fire. You could probably freelance and do some stuff for people who are AI, developing stuff for AI and do scripting. You could go on Fiverr, you could go on Upwork. You could probably people would pay you hundreds of dollars an hour to do some Python for them. You just need to advertise yourself if you're a legit Python developer. My kid knows Python. Develop a game using Python, and I'm like, do you know that you could be using this for X, Y, and Z? And they're like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, you know how kids are. Shout out to Bitwarden for super frustrating steps. I've been trying to use Bitwarden. Um, Lately, I'm trying to get away from. I need to. I don't know, man. I think maybe I'm gonna get away from some of these password systems because I need to. I need to get a better way because they keep getting hacked. LastPass has been hacked. I mean, several of one password's been hacked. Like several of these guys have been hacked, and I'm getting kind of nervous. Like, seems like I don't know what. I mean, the best thing you can do is just have multi-factor authentication because nobody's safe these days. Just make it super hard for them to hack your stuff. Have a degree, some certifications, but difficulty getting my first job. Yeah, that first one is difficult. I think a lot of times people don't know how to advertise themselves. People don't know how to advertise themselves, and because of that, they have a real hard time. They have a real hard time getting in because it's already hard enough if you don't have experience. Um, but if you don't advertise yourself, and what you could do is just put your stuff. First of all, fix your resume up, right? Like you need to get your content good. Get your content straight. What do I mean by that? So, if you want examples of how to do a good resume with very little experience, look on LinkedIn. Look at other people's resume. Type in IT support, and then instead of getting jobs, look for people. And some people will put their resume out there. Look for people who are entry level, who don't have a lot on their resume, and look how they do it. Another thing is use a large language model, and then ask the large language model, how do I make an ATS style resume when I have very little experience, and then put your experience on there. Actually give it your resume. Why do I keep bringing up large language models? Because the way that they're designed is to take all human knowledge and make an assessment based off of all of that. It's going to be some of the best information you can get. Is it the best? The absolute best you can get? No one piece of information is going to be the best. What you want to do is take from multiple sources and come up with your own conclusion. You can download my resume. I've got some resume examples that have very little experience. Use LinkedIn, use LLMs, use different sources to come up with a real solid piece of profile and resume. And then once you have that, once you have something solid that lists your certifications properly, your degrees properly, all your projects you've ever done, any kind of freelance work you've ever done, all your skills, it has everything on there. Take all of that and upload it to the following sites: LinkedIn, Dice, Monster.com, Career Builder. Take the top 10 most popular job aggregators in your country and put yourself on each one of those after your resume is built. And then start applying for jobs. This will allow you to have a passive and active solution for finding a job. So you have a campaign that's both passive, meaning it's everywhere and people are finding you when you're asleep, when you're at work, wherever you're doing. They'll find you. They're going to be finding your resume. And then an active one where you're actively applying for entry-level positions. Don't be afraid to apply from some entry-level positions. The first ones you get are probably going to be local. They're probably not going to pay a lot, but all you're trying to do right now is get your foot in the door so that you can build your resume further. So those are the first things you can do. Another thing you can do is do freelance work. Actually do work like you don't have to start a LLC or S corp or anything like that, or sole proprietorship, whatever. What I'm saying is do freelance work. Like actually go out and hook up somebody's firewall for them, hook up somebody's network for them, hook up somebody's Wi-Fi, do actual IT work, and that is your freelance work. Put that on your resume. So that's another thing you can do. So there's a few things that you can do. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. If you're really about that life, if you're really hardcore like I was, you could go into the military. They'll give you some direct experience. They'll give you some direct experience. You could you could go overseas. If you're willing to travel, there'll be jobs right around where you live. If they'll set you up with a vehicle or plane tickets to go wherever you need to go. It's not going to be fun, but it'll be your first job. You will put that in your resume. Have a plan. Like listen, I'm going to work here for 1 year. I'm going to get experience as much as I can. And then I'm going to bounce out of here, or I'm going to level up. I'm going to be a supervisor at this place to make $20 an hour more, or whatever it is. William, thank you for that $20, man. I appreciate that. Bruce has all the job hacks. I'm just telling you guys what I've done, and people who I know who've gotten some positions based off the stuff I've said. and tips I picked up from other people along the way. Another thing that I haven't brought up, that I do quite frequently, is when I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Dice, I'm on Monster or whatever. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll find the job on those sites, and then I'll go directly to the website. Like for example, let's say I'm looking for jobs in IT support, right? And I find a bunch. I find someone Northrop Grumman on Raytheon, on Google, on Meta, whoever, right? Then what I'll do once I find that the job is listed for that particular job, that role, I'll go directly to their career page. I'll get off of LinkedIn, off of Dice or wherever I found it, go directly to their page, find their career page, and then I'll just apply directly for it. And sometimes they'll have jobs listed there on that career page that they didn't have on the job aggregators for whatever reason, and then apply directly there. I do that quite a bit, and that also works. What that does is once you put your resume directly in their database, it's putting it in exactly how their database, exactly how they want it, and they keep it there for years and years. And they'll be contacting me literally years later. They're still contacting me when jobs open up. So I've done this on Booz Allen Hamilton. I've done it on Lockheed Martin, on Raytheon, on Northrop Grumman. And they still, to this day, whenever a job opens up, they'll contact me and say, hey, we have this job opening for, this seems like it fits your resume. Send us an updated resume if you're interested in this position. So that's another cool thing I do. And it works, man. It really works. Okay, let's see here. William said, Bruce, do you suggest grabbing your IT to GRC template or taking some of your courses first? So my courses specifically, William, is specifically for a certain type of GRC person, which is a government GRC person, specifically the U.S. federal government. So that's what my course is for. So that one, if you are trying to get in the government, or you've been leveled up, you're an IT person, and they're forcing you into this GRC, it's Information Security Officer role, is absolutely perfect for you. I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to know, all the ins and outs. But for an entry-level GRC person for just any industry, I've been thinking about doing something for that demographic, like people of all walks of life. I just haven't thought that through yet. Do I suggest that you grab the IT? And as far as the GRC templates, they're free. Like anybody can grab them. If nothing else, it'll give you an example of what it's supposed to look like. What other organizations have done to do, like, say, a system security plan or security assessment report or something. It's got all that kind of stuff in there. So that's going to be relevant to a very specific type of demographic. Okay. So you have a clearance like I do. Okay, let me see. Ambitious Hack says, do you think you need to be an individual contributor before being an information system security officer? If so, what role would be good feeder role? A good feeder role? An individual contributor? I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean by that? Do you need to be an individual contributor before being an ISO? What do you mean by individual contributor? I'm not familiar with that. You're referring to the demographic that is for. Let me see if I understand what you're saying here. Um, Before taking my course, do I think you should do the GRC templates? So before taking my course, what I would recommend you do is this. Um, I have some free stuff first. Before you get it, before you purchase it, I would recommend that you do the intro. There's a intro that's free. Go on the site convocourses.com. Just start scrolling through. There's a bunch of free stuff. One of the free ones that I have is like it shows you like the first couple chapters of the course to see if that's like what you want to do. And it's got downloadables and stuff. There's some downloadables, but the downloadables that are free won't, if you don't know what's going on, they won't mean anything to you. I put the downloadables there because I was in a position many times where I needed to have a template for work. Not at my current job, but some other jobs I was at, we needed to have a template. We didn't had no idea how to do it. So we'd go online and figure out, okay, what do we want to have? Like what kind of thing do we want to do? And then we'd go from there. It would be something to build on, basically. And if nothing else, like something to bounce ideas off of and see if we're going the right direction. We already have a template, but is this how you're supposed to do it, kind of thing? So that's what the templates are for. If you want to take my course, check out the free stuff first. Check out my free stuff. Like I've got I'm surprised more people don't do the free one. Like I have a downloadable. It's the first part of the risk management framework. Is so portion is free. You can just, it might not be your cup of tea, might not be something you want to do. So just do that. And then actually the paid one even has like a section where it's free. Like you just look at that first and then figure out, okay, is this kind of the style that I want? Or do I want something else that's cheaper from like Udemy or something? So that's what I would recommend. I hope that answers your question. Uh, you were saying your courses were geared for those who used to work for the federal government, as I do. Yes, it definitely is. If you're working for the federal government, if you're an information security officer, it's definitely for you. it's, it's definitely for you. Hey Ryan, how you doing, man? Let me see. So at work, we've been going back and forth between different um, coops and ISCPs. Do you make a substantial difference between the two, or do you accept different? Except the difference might be negligible. It seems, Ryan. It seems to depend on the organization how they define it. Um, what I've worked in private sector. I worked in several different federal organizations, and what I've noticed is that there doesn't their interpretation of a coop versus a an ISCP seems to depend on their definition of it and what the organization determines what is what they're gonna what the I'll read both, and sometimes there's no difference from one organization to another, and sometimes something that I would have called an ISCP, they're calling a coup, and vice versa. So I would say it depends on the organization. Um, yeah, I would say it depends on the organization. So I mean, I hope this doesn't sound like a cop out, but that's just my honest opinion about it. Yeah, like right now, we've got some contingency plans, and it also depends on like how the system is built. So and I can't say a lot, but it depends on how the system is built. So we're talking about continuity of operations, um, and how the organization is going to continue to operate that system if something happens. Like there's a disaster happens, how are we going to continue to operate if it goes down? What are we going to do? And it's supposed to explain what's going on. I would say it's negligible. Like it's the difference between the two depends on how the organization defines a contingency plan versus a continuity of operations. Um, Depends on how they're defining it. And I hope that doesn't sound like too much of a cop out. What's been your experience with this? Like, have you what's your opinion about it? Let me get some TikTok stuff in here. I'm an auditor but struggle with writing. What do you recommend? Um, with writing, keep it simple. Um, all you're trying to do is explain who, what, when, where, and why. Um, don't get fancy. Don't use words people can't understand. You just get straight to the point, and remember you're writing for two different audiences. You're writing for a highly technical audience, and you're writing for middle layman, right? So the first part of it is going to have an executive summary that's just going to very in plain English explain what's going on quickly, and that's for the C-level execs. C-level execs very smart, but they don't have a lot of time. So you want to get straight to the point with the first part of whatever you're writing. Straight to the point, explain what's going on in like a couple paragraphs. And then explain to the managers, here's our main things that we need to focus on, right? And then get into the meat, like the technical side, where you're going into great detail, technical detail about the who, what, when, where, and why, who's involved with this system, who are our main points of contact, what specifically are we talking about? Break that down in like a couple sentences. If it's a scan, like if there's a time frame, when are we going to do this? What, just technical writing, just get straight to the point. You don't have to be fancy. You're not trying to wow anybody with your incredible language. And one thing that I am so bad at, which is editing. Like I don't know what the hell's wrong with me, but man, sometimes I'll skip editing. Never in your life, don't skip the editing. And I'm really bad about this. So don't, make sure you do a spell check on whatever you write. Do who, what, when, where, and why. Remember, you got two different audiences for technical writing. You got your highly technical people. Save that for the meat at the bottom, and at the top, write it to everybody else, and get straight to the point on the first part. That's what I would recommend. And then also, I would recommend using a large language model. Run your everything you have through ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, hey, is this written? Write it and then say, how can I improve this? But if you're in auditing, then you probably can't do that sometimes because you can't use LLMs for sensitive information. Let me see here. My opinion is that they can be the same. Exactly. Continuity, a contingency plan versus a continuity of operation. There's just, I mean, there's so much overlap, and it seems like they're at every organization I've been to. It seems like they'll call what I would have thought was a continuity of operation is a contingency plan, and vice versa. It doesn't seem like there's a difference between the two. But sometimes I'll go to an organization, they'll have a disaster recovery plan, and then they have a coup plan, and they'll have a contingency of operation plan. I'm like, why don't you just have one and put everything in one? They'll have an alternate site plan. It's like, why are they making their life harder? Okay, are you saying such a system or network administrator ambitious? Um, are you saying such a William? You got to rewrite this, man. I don't know if I can't read or if I'm just. um, let me see your previous statement. I'm looking to go. Oh, you're looking to go into an ISO role. Okay, I see what you're saying. Where are you right now, William? Like, what are you doing right now? And an ambitious hack says, to be honest, anything on the CS team, I think you mean cybersecurity team. If you were transferring into cyber security, um, with the hopes of becoming an ISO. Yeah, that's a good point. Ambitious hacks. So, okay, then you guys are having a whole conversation here. So, bear with me, guys. William says, I've seen Bruce say that you need to at least know the basics, such as networking, but I'll let him answer for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would say you need to know the basics before you do ISO work. Um, absolutely. Like you need to know networking. You need to know the basics of how computers work. Um, like a help desk person is very well positioned to do to specialize in something like an ISO position, an information system security officer position, because they've had enough exposure to an organization and what kinds of issues an organization can have. They've had exposure to a little bit of exposure to networks, how what's going on with the network and how important the network is to a organization, small, medium, or large. They'll have exposure to problem solving, exposure. They'll have to know something about how computers work, and then how software works with operating systems and some of the issues that happen with both, and then the vulnerabilities that occur with those. And if there's ever been a hack, an incident response, they'll have to have exposure to some of those things. So you'll want, if you're really serious about doing this type of work, becoming an information security officer, meaning GRC type work, meaning cybersecurity, information security, wherever you want to call it, then you have to start with the basics. I would start off with basic information technology. That's where I would start. Wherever you happen to be at, there's something for you there. There's some career that's doing basic IT. And William says, I am an information technology technician, but I do everything in my role. Currently, I'm managing a small network. So help desk, I administrate both for system and network, and have about 15 users in the group. Okay. So couple things. Okay, so a couple people are chiming in on this. So couple things. What you could start doing, William, is look at have you ever written the security policy for your organization? Have you ever done any writing, technical writing, whether it's an SOP, a work instruction, a policy? Have you ever done any of that stuff? I'm asking, I bring this up quite a bit on these podcasts because it's very important. And I've noticed that anytime I put that on my resume, I get asked about it in interviews. So it is important. Another thing would be frameworks. Um, yes, SOPs and instructions. Got to put it on your resume, man. Put that on your resume for sure. We think nothing of it as IT professionals. You think nothing of it, but not everybody does it, and not everybody can do it because they just don't have the knowledge to do it. They're just not in a position where they can, but you do. So you got to put that on your resume. Put how many you put the impact of it, everything you've done on SOPs. How many people use it? Um, that kind of stuff. Put the exact type of SOPs you've written. What was it based off of? Was it based off of NIST 800? Was it based off of ISO 27001? Was it based off of CIS version 8? What was it based off of? Like, that's the kind of stuff you want to put in your resume. Check out my resume. My resume is for free. Download it for free. Go to convocourses.net. You'll see a bunch of free stuff. It's a Linktree page, and scroll down until you see my resume. Sign up, download my resume. If you don't want to see my newsletter, you can just get yourself off there. You can unsubscribe from it, but just download the ATS style resume. You get an example of the types of stuff that a GRC person should have on your resume. Don't just shoot for government unless if you're in the government, do it. Okay, if you're already if you don't mind me asking, are you in the government? If you are, then yes, you want to do an information security officer. If not, there's other GRC equivalent jobs. So look at my resume. You'll notice that I talk about what I've written. You'll notice I talk about okay, awesome. You're perfectly positioned, man. You're about to level up. Okay, so look at how I word it. It's an ATS, it's very simplified. ATS style resume. Awesome. Okay. You'll notice I mention a lot about NIST 800 because there's certain keywords that I'm putting on there. So here's the thing about my resume. There's misspellings in there, there's errors, there's grammar. This resume that you're about to download has gotten me multiple six-figure jobs. Multiple six-figure jobs. It's because they're not looking at the spelling, they're looking at the keywords. They're looking at, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna list them down for you. They'll be in my resume, so you don't have to take notes. I mentioned NIST 800, Risk Management Framework, RMF. I mentioned system security plans. My exposure to system security plans. Now I've written them, but you could any kind of exposure that you've had, anytime you've helped write one, anytime somebody's asked you for an implementation statement, hell, if you reviewed one, you want to put something about SSPs on there. If you don't know nothing about SSPs, download my template, also free. Download the template. So yes, your questioner, had no idea you're in this position. So now my answer is different. Download it and check out system security plans. I'll give you an example of what they look like. You guys probably use like EMAS or Exacta or something like that. If you have exposure to that at all, put that on there. List Exacta or EMAS or whatever exposure that you have to ARCs, to Archer or any of those tools that you want to list. EMAS, man, you got to put that shit on your resume, man. Spell it out and then also put, EMAS. What else? System security plans, plan of action and milestones. If you have any exposure to that, put that on there. And put right on top that you're looking for an information system security officer position, ISO. Because ISO is also a keyword. My resume is jam-packed with all the keywords you need. But don't stop there. Go to LinkedIn and type in ISO, and then you'll find a bunch of ISO positions. And another great resource for keywords and key phrases is going to be other people's resumes. Steal from other people's resumes. The wording, right? Not exactly, obviously, you're not going to copy their shit and put it on your resume, obviously. But what you want to do is put the word, how they word stuff. What kinds of things are they targeting? They're going to be listing EMAS. They're going to be listing Exacta. They're going to be listing, you might even want to list some Navy, have you ever done STIGs? You want to put STIGs, DOD STIGs in there. That's hot right now. That kind of stuff. You'll see all of the keywords and key phrases on other people's resumes and on mine when you download it. Put that stuff in your resume and put right on top, looking for an information system security officer position. And if you want remote work, put remote, looking for remote work too, if you want it. I mean, if not, if you're okay with, the best jobs are going to be, the highest paying jobs are not going to be remote, just so you know. So if you're looking for that money, if you're okay with on site, then yeah, go for that. If you really want that money, you'd be willing to move or willing to travel, and you'll get paid. So you're set up, man. Congrats on success, man. That's what's up. Your life's about to change. Let me see. What roles do you recommend? What roles do you recommend besides help desk? LOL. I'm currently within a cleared company and not looking to take much of a pay cut. I can't remember what job you said that you had, Ambitious Hacks. Let me see if I'm trying to scroll up to see what you said before. You said, do you think that you need to be an individual contributor to be an ISO? What if you give me more information about like where you're at right now, I can give you get better advice, more of a prescription for whatever situation you have. I am in program security. Program Lockheed. Are you like a program manager? What do you do? Like, do you do like personnel security or program security? What does that do? Program security. Program security officer? Program security. Program security officer. I'm trying to see what you do. If you're a program security officer, you ensure adherence to laws as well as national DoD or SAP in accordance with DoD 22505. You do exercise approval authorities for standard operating procedures. Sounds like you're doing some stuff that's already in line with ISO work. So you might be set up already. You might be able to take the same track as William. Like everything I just told William, you might be able to do the same thing. I'm looking at if you're doing program security officer work, but I don't know how technical you are. How technical are you? Because you're going to have to get some, if you're trying to be an ISO, you need to have some idea of what, the reason why I keep bringing it up, like you have to have some kind of technical understanding is because a lot of times what they have us doing is like vulnerability management, or they have us doing scan analysis or running scans, not very technical. Okay. So you're going to have to know the technical piece, which is it's not hard. Take your time. It's going to take time. It's not difficult, but it will take time. There is a learning curve, but if you really want to level up from where you're at, if you don't care about what you're doing, I would continue what you're doing and try to level up into management. I'm in beginning stages of studying for the Security Plus. You're on the right track. Get your hands dirty. Start building up a lab. Get your hands on actual systems. Tear systems apart, put them back together, build networks, work on your own home wireless network, scan your own network. You can do a virtual, you can use VMware. This is what I do. I use VMware on my system and I'll run like a server. I'll run like a workstation and I'll mess around with both. I'll turn on security features on them. I'll actually implement a firewall on it. I'll just mess around with the technology. I'll put something like Kali Linux on there and start hacking into another system with a virtual environment. you'll be able to do all this stuff. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you're really in for a treat, because you're going to learn a lot. Like VMware is what you want to look into. VMware. You download that. You have to learn you have to install it. You have to figure out how to put operating systems on it. It's a system where you can have multiple computers on your computer, a virtual network on your computer, which allows you to do all kinds of stuff. But if you don't want to do that, what you can also do is build an actual network, like have multiple computers on a network, and start messing around with those that way. I know what you're talking about. We are using it at college courses. That's awesome. Oh, another thing is, if you're in college, if you can do, you already have a job, so internships is kind of out of the question. But yeah, you can do, if they have something where you can actually do some, help them with computers on the campus, that would be something you could put on your resume. If you're on campus, I don't know if maybe it's online or something like that. So, all right, I've been ignoring the TikTok too long. Let me see. Would computer science be helpful for cybersecurity? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I started with A plus tech support, then 15 years of product management before going into cybersecurity. Man, thanks, Big Game Mike, and other people who are chiming in, helping other people out with this journey. That's what this community is all about: is helping each other out, giving advice. I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm just telling you guys what I've done, what's worked for me, and I'm not always right, but it's something to kind of have a backboard against, to have some advice on what that now somebody who's done X, Y, and Z, to get into cybersecurity. And that's one bit of information that you can use in your arsenal to get where you're trying to go. Let me see here. Yeah, Big Game Mike is giving some crazy, awesome advice. He said, somebody asked, Love and Light said, let me see what they asked first. He's getting some really good, as usual. I'm looking at his comments. I'm like, it's impressive. Gave advice, said, try to do normal IT jobs before going into cybersecurity jobs. Yeah, I gotta agree with that, because the more you know about, that's why I always say help desk, because it's really good foundational. I had no idea how good it was until you get in this field and you meet people who have very little or no technical experience, and they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on, and it's just it'll help more if you have some hands on and have some idea what's going on. So, hey guys, I've been talking for 2.5 hours, so I'm about to get off of this thing. But I appreciate everybody who jumped in here. Thanks for jumping in late. I know I went a little bit late because I had some business stuff to attend to. Appreciate it. Let me see if I missed anybody on Instagram. Nope, didn't. Okay. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Thanks so much for all your thanks for your hard-earned money, William. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Thanks, Big Gay Mike, for helping people out. And who's this person who's always on my calls, on my lives? Live and Learn is always here. Holy crap, that's crazy. Thanks. Shout out Live and Learn. Appreciate you. Huh? My mic is. Oh, okay. Another comment. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you. Let me see. Okay, let me see. Last comment. Hey, Bruce, do you mind if I send you my revised resume and just a couple of updated? Yes, send it to me. It's at Convocourses dot Convocourses at contact at convocourses.com. It's been a long day, guys. Contact at convocourses.com. Send me your resume. I'll take a look at it. I got this. I've created this GPT. I never advertised it because not many people have um, are paying for Chat GPT. But I made a GPT, if you know what that is, that analyzes people's resumes. And yeah, so send me anyway. Send me your resume, and I'll run it through there, and and I'll send it back to you. All right, guys, that's it. I'm out of here. Thank you so much.